Okay, we're recording. Okay, so my name is Leslie, and we're going to be talking about Ayurveda today. I'll do the ever so slightest introduction, and then you guys can tell me just whoever wants to go next. Just unmute yourself and tell me your name, where you're zooming in from today, and if you know anything about Ayurveda. So I am an Ayurvedic practitioner here in town, in Colorado Springs. I am no longer seeing clients on a personal consultation business. I was seeing them before my baby was born, and that was 2 years ago. But I do make custom herbs for anybody in the community, and mostly my community is Cambio. And I have a website. It's not really up to date right now, but you're welcome to look at it. It's Conscious Roots Ayurveda.com. Oops, only one M in the .com. You guys know that. So we're going to talk about, so that's me, and Ayurveda came into my life actually through a long time ago, before Core Power was like a franchise. And I don't know how much of you know Austin and Laura, but they were kind of sprinkled within the teacher training programs in there before they went over to Cambio completely. And I did a Core Power a seasonal cleanse, and they were talking about Ayurveda, and that was about 12 or so years ago. And I've just continually moved towards Ayurveda along with my yoga, and just really enhanced that. I'm also a nurse, a pediatric nurse of 16 years, and I was kind of putting that completely on hold to start my business, and I did. And then with everything and financial and the pandemic and everything in my own life, I've reintegrated the Western medicine as a financial source for me. And so I work at a surgery center once a week. But I think having the bridge of the Eastern and Western medicine is really valuable. And that's what I really bring to you guys when I talk about it. I'm really talking about like the Western modality that we've been taught, and the challenges that we have as Westerners, but yet we're learning Eastern healing. And if I'm sure most of you are gravitated towards that, just being in a teacher training. The alternative that you have your own self-responsibility, and you have your own power within your body and your own energetic system. So try to remember that when we're talking, and I'll try to highlight that, like certain disease processes or something, there's always a Western view and there's always an Eastern view. So that's a ultra mini version of me. So just tell me your name and where you're zooming in from, and if you know anything about Ayurveda.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm from the extended program at Cambio. I'm here in Colorado Springs. I am familiar with Ayurveda. I was in a class with Kristen Mack a few years ago. She was talking a little bit about it, and then I found a podcast and I kind of geeked out and listened to like 16 hours of Ayurveda for a couple of weeks, and I got really interested in it. And so I'm excited about today's module. I'm familiar with the doshas, and I'm just excited to learn more about it.
Is it me? Usually they call on us. I don't know what order we're in. On my screen, I look like I'm next. So my name is Jenny. I live in the Springs. I also have young children, so I feel you. I have kind of like my whole life been more on the crunchy side, but I don't really know anything about Ayurveda in particular. I I recently had some pretty bad back issues and had to succumb to using some Western medicine, and I feel amazing after I had a back surgery. So I am now kind of like 50-50. I definitely give both their equal weight in taking care of issues, but I'm excited to learn today. Yep.
Hi, I'm Max. I'm zooming in from Pittsburgh with Kayla. It's my wife. We're both in Pittsburgh right now, so we are farther than anyone else. I don't know anything about Ayurveda, but I'm very interested in it. Just the holistic backgrounds of healing versus medicine, and my liver's not as probably strong as I want it to be, or kidneys. Yeah, thank you.
I think I'm next. I'm above Max on my screen. So my name is Belle and I'm in the Springs as well. My first introduction to Ayurvedic medicine was from my best friend. She grew up in just a beautiful house with her mother is an extraordinary gardener, and so they had a huge flower garden, and my friend was the type to be like, oh, you're not feeling well today, let's go out, we'll pick you some mugwort, we'll make you a little herbal concoction. So I definitely think it's very interesting, but I don't have as much knowledge about it as I would like, because I had my best friend to make all of these teas for me and did not have to teach myself, and now she's 600 miles away, so this is going to be a great touch up. I'm excited.
I think I'm next. I'm Tori. I'm dialing in from Colorado Springs as well. Kind of like a lot of other people said, I don't know much specifically about Ayurveda, but I've always kind of fallen more on the have a healthier lifestyle, try to keep my immune system strong versus taking medicine. I try to take any type of traditional Western medicine as a very last resort effort. I try to stay preventative and take more of the natural side.
Okay, I'll go because I don't know where I am in the order. I'm just going to read Flo's because she put in the chat. She doesn't know much about Ayurveda, but she grew up with Chinese medicine and Western medicine just due to her parents being newly landed immigrants growing up. So there's Flo's. So hi, I'm Corey. I am Colorado Springs native, so I've been here my whole life. I don't know a lot about Ayurveda specifically, but I grew up first with grandparents who grew up on a farm during the Great Depression, who were 4 to 5 hours away from the nearest hospital. So there was a lot of farm knowledge in terms of just everything, what to do for a cold, what to do. So I grew up with that. And then when I was 11, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so she went integrative medicine approach. She did surgery, but she worked with a woman here locally, Vivian Rice, with Wild Rice Nutrition. She's Chinese based, but also she's a Native American wise woman. So she's based more in this continent's knowledge. And then I've kind of done more research in terms of my dogs, because both of them had some pretty life-threatening conditions that Western medicine wasn't helping. So I went on a whole tangent on whole body wellness with them. And that kind of made my own awareness, because we're all mammals. So it was kind of what herbs work for both people and dogs, what is true nutrition, so I've done all that. So that's kind of my background with alternative to Western medicine.
I'll go. I'm in Pittsburgh. We lived in Colorado for a couple of years, which is why we're here at all. Thanks kind of to everything going virtual, this is possible. We have 2 dogs that desperately want their food right now, so they're being very needy. I think that, so we've kind of started eating healthier in the past like year or two. And then we just actually switched our dogs over to a raw food diet. So they don't eat any like processed anything at all. It's all like raw bones, fish, all kinds of good stuff, bee pollen. So this is kind of like a nice natural progression now for us to kind of tie it all together, I feel like.
I'm Diana. I don't know much about Ayurveda at all. Actually, I just bought the book, The Power of Health. I just received it yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I can't wait to read it. So it's really cool that we have this class today to kind of get me started in that, on that. But I have always been, I kind of, like Tori said, preventative, and I kind of wait until I try other things before I go to Western medicine. So yeah, I can't wait to learn more about it.
Good morning. I'm Caleb, here in Colorado Springs. I don't know much about Ayurveda. I assume it's from the like areas around India, maybe Southeast Asia. I'm not really sure, but I've dove into some Chinese medicine with health issues I've had in the past, and yeah, liver issues and stuff like that. So, and then different plant medicines and stuff like that. So yeah, tiny bit of knowledge.
Cool.
Go ahead. Do you want to go, Christian?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I thought that was it. Go for it. It's Katie, right?
Okay, I'll go. I don't think our screens are all in the same order. So, my name is Christian. I am from Colorado Springs. Sorry for showing up 10 minutes late. I missed most of your introduction. My computer took 20 minutes to load Zoom. I am from a family of nurses. So I grew up with a lot of that. It's been very beneficial in this time of pandemic. But I've also, like Tori and Diana said, I've very much been a preventative care person, trying to take care of myself so I don't have to go to the doctor. And kind of like other people are saying too, I'm from an immigrant family from this continent, so I've also heard a lot of kind of like folk mythology around healing and stuff too, what may or may not work. So I guess I don't really think of it as like an Eastern-Western distinction. I think of it kind of as a like, I don't know, clinical versus non-clinical kind of like, how has it been vetted or whatever? What kind of knowledge base is it? So the actual term, I've heard the term Ayurveda. I think it seems to mean healing of some sort. But I enjoy this stuff, so I'm ready to learn more about it.
Okay, I'm Katie. My computer's also being crazy today, Christian, so I feel you. I've been like popping in and out of the screen. So hopefully I'll be here for the rest of class or come back soon if I disappear. I don't think I know anything about Ayurveda, but I might deep down in my unconscious, and I'm very intrigued about the healing process.
Beautiful. This group is like the more I do these trainings, I teach the 200 and the 300 hour for Cambio. The more I do them, it's like the more fine-tuned the group comes to my personal life, my values, and sort of what I'm putting out in the community. So I not only host women's circles, so I think it was Corey that was saying about the wise woman, which I host wise women circles on, or women's circles on the new moon. And that's been incredibly powerful for me. I'm active on Instagram, and I usually post I just wrote Instagram. I'm at the girl with dogs. You're welcome to follow me. It used to be Conscious Roots Ayurveda, and I would have the dual account, but I just put it all into one because really I think seeing everyone's life mesh together is what it is, and that's what it should be. Anyways, and then the ancestral knowledge, I forget, I think it was Christian that said that, that is hugely important. And I don't know if you can tell, but my face is like a little red today. Not only is that in my ancestry genetics, but that's telling me something Ayurvedically that I hopefully will make sense when I explain it. But we just came out of the hot summer season, and so I've accumulated the pitta dosha, and that's my primary dosha anyways, but I'm starting to see it in my skin. I'm starting to see it in my digestion. And while yes, Ayurveda is hugely profound on prevention rather than curing, it does work for curative measures, but the prevention in the preservation of your immortality, so your soul, right, is really where Ayurveda excels. And it's really neat to see these comments come out. And then Katie, you were saying, I don't know anything about Ayurveda, but maybe I do deep down. So if you think back to the primordial reasons of how we evolved, and all the scientific stuff, the fact is that your cells have a memory, and your cells come alive when you hear or feel or integrate certain things. Like maybe it's the mantras or the sound, or maybe it's bathing in a certain mineral bath or hot spring, or maybe it's eating food that you used to eat or that your ancestors used to eat, and now you've come alive and found it in this 2020 weirdness, that you found it for yourself, and you start to come alive literally from the inside out, and your cells really have a memory. So just all of those comments like really grabbed my attention. So I thank you for sharing that. And I think somebody even said that Ayurveda is a knowledge, and it is. And we'll just go ahead and start diving into what I have to offer. I have book recommendations that I'll share at the end. And for those of you that were late getting on, absolutely no worries. I was like, when I work at work, you have to clock in at like 7, right? And I'm like swiping as the clock turns to 7:01. And while I try to prevent that in all of everything I do, it's like, I totally get that. So no worries there. But anyways, what I was going to say is, for those of you that joined late, you can either type in the message box. I'll try to see it when I can, or just feel free to unmute yourself and be like, hey, wait a second. What were you saying about the summer season or whatever? Because I think asking questions in the moment is really important rather than waiting till the very end, right? Okay. So yeah, Ayurveda, the word Ayur means life, and Veda means knowledge. So the whole context means life knowledge. And this is what's given to us from the earth, what we use as medicine, and respectively, anything can be used as medicine. Even as crazy as it seems, even arsenic can be used as medicine. And truly in different countries, they use heavy metal therapy. So like if you're receiving copper, iron, or arsenic, or selenium, or whatever it is, if you need that can be a medicine. And what we think of as medicine in the West is very different than what these traditional healing systems think of as medicine. So the thing I want you to walk away with is that anything can be used as a medicine. It depends on your reverence, your intention, and your use of it, right? If you just go out and put arsenic in your drinks, well, it's probably not going to help you. But and I use arsenic because that's really extreme, because we're all like, oh my God, arsenic, like that's so bad, right? But not everything can be used as medicine, and not every medicine is good for every body, right? The body determines how it receives that medicine, and it's always changing. So when I see clients, and I'm not quite set up in my life to offer virtual sessions, but that is something that I'm interested in the future. But it's so drastic when you see and meet somebody and you can feel their aura and you can feel their energy, and you can determine what they're objectively telling you, regardless of what their mouth and their mind is saying, right? You're looking at their disposition, and this is one of the major tools that Ayurveda gives you, is how is it being presented to you without interpretation? This is just objective laws of nature, right? Yeah, and the difference between medicine and poison is the dosing, but also how your body responds to it. Continually checking in, continually going through your intuition and your intuitive sense. We're all given that as human beings, and animals sometimes have a better intuition because they use it more frequently. And it's just like a muscle. If you take away your distractions and hone in to your energetic sense, or, like when you sit in a circle and you put like hands touching each other and they're like, feel the energy transferring from me to you. Like when that's first presented to somebody that has never felt energy, they're like, I can't feel anything. But when you hone in on yourself and you strengthen your intuition, you can feel anybody's energy from close or far away. And then that is a tool that gives you the deciphering which medicine, which herb, which dose, how often, why would I need this? Do I need medicine? Things like that. And this is all something that is given to us from Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is originally from, what do I want to say? I don't want to say invented. It's originally given to us from oral translations from the south of India. So our India has the tip. The very, very tip is called Kerala. And that's the southernmost point of India, the like state, or I don't know if they call them provinces there. And that's originally where it's from. So a lot of the Ayurvedic dishes or cooking measures are usually Indian flavored, right? And we'll go over this, but just to eat Ayurvedic doesn't mean that you have to eat Indian food. Some people don't even like Indian food, right? It mirrors Chinese medicine a lot too. Historically, they kind of came about at the same time, Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, and they're teaching kind of very parallel things. And the meridians of the body, say acupuncture along with marma points, in Ayurveda is very mirrored to being one of the same. It's just one is Chinese medicine and one is Ayurvedic. So whoever was talking about Chinese medicine, that's in your ancestral roots, and that is given to you. And if you were taught even like one thing, even how to make a grandmother's tea, that is given to you from your past memory of your ancestral roots, and that's highly impactful to the life that you're living now. So in a sense, Ayurveda is so broad. You're just like, how do I wrap my mind around this? Because it's life knowledge, but I can't possibly know everything about life. I can't study it all. And you're right, it's a lifelong process. It's just like yoga. You got to do it to get more out of it. You have to stay consistent and give yourself a full year to go through the seasons of Ayurveda before you kind of call it quits or go more into it, or if some of you would like more education, or some of you would like more like practical skills, like, okay, how do I make Ayurvedic medicine for myself? Give yourself a full year to embrace the seasons, to see balance and harmony, and then to on the contrary, to see how the accumulation of each season affects the harmony in your body. Yeah. So I want to read to you, this is from the Shashruta Samhita. So within the Vedic text of where this information comes from, Samhita, these are preserved text, you know, kind of like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Bible, or, but it's, I don't think it's as human interpreted as much. I'm definitely no anthropologist or historian, but this, and again, you have to remember this was in Sanskrit, so the English version has a little bit of tweaking to it, but I think this really rings true, especially in 2020. And as I'm writing, speaking, someone's welcome to type it in the chat for me. So this is a definition of health according to Ayurveda. One who is established in the self, capital S, so your higher self. One who has a balanced dosha, balanced Agni, and I'll read this several times. Agni is Agni, which is your digestive fire. Properly formed dhatus. Dhatu is Dhatu, and that's your tissue layers of your body. Properly formed dhatus, proper elimination of mala. Mala in this context is not a necklace. Mala is waste. Well-functioning bodily processes, and whose mind, soul, and senses are full of bliss, is called a healthy person. Okay, so Ayurveda defines health as an all-encompassing being. The health is a being of itself, and it incorporates everything that we are. So one who is established in the self, one who has a balanced dosha, a balanced Agni, properly formed dhatus, proper elimination of mala, well-functioning bodily processes, and whose mind, soul, and senses are full of bliss, is called a healthy person. So oh, great, thank you. So if you're established in your higher self, the ego isn't determining your reactivity, or you did spell dosha right, your reactivity to emotions. Yes, you're an emotional being, and we don't want to suppress those or ignore those, but you learn to embody them, and then you let them go, right? Kind of like I see it as like a disintegrating dust. Like you let the emotion come in and you let it disintegrate. You learn from it. Where did it go? Is it trapped in your body? But if you live in the emotional body, you're living in your ego, right? One of the ways that you can live in the ego. So if you're established in your higher self, you're looking for your soul's purpose, your dharma. Why are you here? It's that of what you are that cannot be disposed of, that cannot be damaged, is your higher self. If you have a balanced dosha, right? There's 3 doshas, and we're going to go into details with those. There's 3 main ones, right? But if you're, like I was describing, I am having a little pitta, what's called vitiation, or I'll just say vitiated. vitiated, which means there's like too much of one dosha, right? And that's what this is speaking to. You want to kind of have all the doshas available for you all the time, and it's your personal makeup of what you are. But if you're always living like in too high of a fire heated state, that's not a balanced dosha. And if you have a balanced Agni, that means your digestive fire is strong and you can digest food. You actually can assimilate the nutrients. You're not just letting it go through the system like a tube, right? You're actually taking it for your cellular disposition. You're making it from your beauty from the inside out, right? What makes a beautiful person is, as we know, as you grow wiser and you're not looking at Vogue magazine as a 15-year-old, is not what you see. It's what you're um, emitting towards those that you meet into the world. So if you have properly formed dhatus, that's each tissue layer, right? You'll see like an 85-year-old woman that's like beautiful and she hardly has any wrinkles, or maybe she has a lot of wrinkles. Or you'll see a really handsome kind of older beau with a mustache, and you're like, wow, he's got some wise cellular dispositions. Maybe that runs across my mind. But those are the dhatus. The tissue layers have gotten what you've fed them, literally through your food, but also through your spirituality, your practices, your mantras, your Ayurvedic practices. And then, of course, proper elimination from your mala. If you eat the food and it hangs around, it's stagnant, it causes acne, or it causes eczema, or you're constipated, or you have hair loss, or, the list is infinite. You're not eliminating the proper things that do not serve you. And again, like in your emotional body, like how easily do you let go of things, right? So that's about the waste. And then bodily processes, that includes everything like endocrine system, digestive process, breathing, anxiety, just how well is your overall all systems of the body functioning. And then of course your mind, body, and soul, that's all encompassing. Ayurveda doesn't see it as, oh, this is a patient that has high blood pressure and that's all that's wrong with them, right? If you look at high blood pressure from an Ayurvedic standpoint, if you're looking at it from an Ayurvedic standpoint, blood pressure is heating. Blood pressure is usually angering. Sometimes it's genetic, but it's also your soul. Like, are you giving your soul what you came here to do? And if not, there's a lot of friction, and friction creates heat, and blood pressure is heating, right? So there's a whole different mindset of looking at the Ayurvedic processes. And if you've learned anything like Chinese medicine, like cold and hot, not literally, but energetically, like an orange is heating versus a cucumber is cooling, right? That is exactly how Ayurveda views it too. And then of course our senses, we're using all 5 senses all the time in our body, but then in our life, and then when we name it through Ayurveda, it's really helpful to incorporate that into our life, and it's much more balanced. And then of course bliss, everyone's seeking bliss and joy, right? But how many times have you ever gone to a doctor or watched the show ER? They're not talking about a healthy person as blissful. They're talking about them, okay, you've met the criteria, you can get out of here. So I challenge you to think of this, and even if you have any medical knowledge, right, set aside the diagnoses and the labels when you're starting to learn about Ayurveda. Think of it through the senses and think of it through nature. And by nature, I mean, like, how does the seasons affect it? Where does it grow? Is that naturally occurring, or is it man-made? Things like that. So that's a very brief overview. Like I said, we could study this our whole lifetime and still not know it. I would rate myself like a third or fourth grader, and I've known about Ayurveda for 12-ish years, and then I've properly been studying it for about 5. And I still would consider myself elementary in my base knowledge. So give yourself a lot of grace. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about those doshas. So there are 3 doshas, and yes, Kayla, you did spell dosha right. So the first one is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So Vata is, so as we describe these 3 doshas, I'm gonna pull, there's 5 elements. I'll go ahead and type those here. And it's air, or sorry, ether, air, fire, water, earth. Okay, so Vata is comprised of ether and air. It's the lightest dosha. And the word dosha actually means fault. Like, think of it like a fault line, like, you know, earthquake, plate tectonics, like there's a weakness. So if you're noticing an excess amount of vata in the air or in your body, or herbs, like light fluffy herbs have a lot more vata rather than like heavy dense like root herbs, right? You're noticing it because the doshic makeup of whatever it is, usually the human body, has accumulated a lot of air and ether. So there's a reason it's like bubbling up. It's saying, hey, there's a problem here. I think you need to take care of this. And then that further leads to the manifestation of a disease process. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Caleb.
I think, is there a test that you can take to figure out what your strengths are as far as dosha goes? Because I think I took one a while back, and it's just like a questionnaire.
Yeah.
About your like bodily functions, things you notice, like examples like acne or different things like that. Like yes. You were, okay, cool, yeah, because I took one years ago. I mean, I think it was like 2014 or something like that, and I completely just haven't looked into it further. So this is really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's a really good question too. I put a website down here for banyanbotanicals.com. I think they have the best quiz online. In your handbook, you probably have, it's like a kind of not a very good copy with like 3 columns of a dosha quiz. I can't remember if they still put it in there. First and foremost, you should know that and this goes for everyone, you should know that each time you take a dosha quiz, it might be a little different, because the questions they are asking are different questions. So you relate to them differently. And I encourage you to take 3 quizzes, right? Or you can just Google any dosha quiz is totally fine. I gotta get on the Google Classroom, and I usually provide a dosha quiz and then 2 handouts. And I had it on there at one point in time. I don't know if it's still on there for a handout, but so when you take the first quiz, you'll be like, oh, cool. Okay. It says I'm mostly pitta. All right, great. And then you'll take it again after listening to this lecture class that we have today. You'll be like, oh man, I actually thought that I was more airy and I had constipation, whereas actually I'm more heated and fiery. And then I encourage you to take it the 3rd time with somebody that you can ask those really hard questions, like, do I spend a lot of money? Or am I hard to get along with? Or do I have trouble sleeping? Right? We always want to paint the picture of what we see rather than what's actually happening, especially on these quizzes. I'm not saying like all of life, but these quizzes, sometimes you want to like rate yourself A+, and it's hard to give yourself like a C or a B- or however you want to view it, right? So yeah, a very simple dosha quiz will give you your dominant dosha. So I do encourage you guys to take at least one, and it's fun to do it. The married couple on here, it's fun to do it with each other and be like, no, you're actually very fiery, and you need to. Are you willing to accept my feedback? You know, and it's just a check mark. It's not like you're evaluating their whole life purpose. So, but Vata is comprised of the lightest elements of ether and air. Ether is usually the hardest element to kind of wrap our conceptual mind around, because you can't see it or feel it. You have to like be in it. Whereas like air, no, you can't see it, but you can feel it, right? You can see the wind moving, or you can feel it on your skin. So ether is like the definition of space, right? You can travel the ethers if you're on like a really psychedelic experience, you're traveling the ethers. Or if somebody is in a session with you for energetic, for energetic, like Reiki, right? If you've ever experienced Reiki or energy healing, you travel the ethers with that person, because they're tracking your energy with you. And if you can really tap into that, or if you've ever been to Austin's class when he does yin and he does adjustments, like you can just feel the energy radiating out of his fingertips. And yeah, I like that Harry Potter reference, totally. But you're traveling the ethers, and or if you've ever experienced the gong, I'm a huge fan of Kundalini yoga, and they always play the gong at the end of class as like a closing little bit. The gong helps you travel the ethers easier. It's the sound of primordial experiences into the cosmos, right? So that's like the kind of vast definition of ether. Anyways, Vata. So you have these two elements that make up this one dosha, right? And you can see it in people objectively in their body. We see it in human beings as very tall, very lengthy, like long distance runners, or Phoebe on Friends. If you're a huge Friends fan, right? She has like a long neck. Her hands are very long, very bony prominences. If you can never see somebody's collarbone, mine never used to stick out, and now I don't know if it's still not as prominent as others, but you can always see my collarbone right here. And some people you can see it, you know, over here and whatnot, but that's something that you can't change. It's not like you're like, I'd like to not show my collarbone today. You know, I mean, you can wear a turtleneck, obviously, but you're not gonna change the disposition of what other people are viewing your collarbone as. And so this is what I'm talking about. These are objective facts, and it's based on the laws of nature. Something that makes up a bony prominence is made of the Vata dosha, and Vata is comprised of the elements of air and ether. So it's very light, it's very airy. It likes a lot of movement. Okay, you can also see it, people that usually have longer noses, like this way. Some people that have a bigger bridge of their nose, that would be considered a Vata type person. There's tons of things online, like on Instagram, I think there's like, I can't remember if it's the hashtag or the actual account, but it's called Vata Problems. So, and you can see like a whole bunch of different examples, and they have really cute memes and, you know, everything like that. So in that regard, social media is really, really helpful. But the way, so this is how you see it in the human body. And even as you guys are talking, like I've never met any of you, and the way that you talk the way that you are presenting yourself in this physical body, I can usually tell how much vata is sort of bothering you, so to speak, or is it accumulating, or um, is it already manifested into a disease process without kind of knowing or having you explain. And it's important to value and empathize what you're saying, and especially in clients, I'm like, okay, well, tell me what you think it is, or how long have you been constipated, for example. I use constipation as an example a lot because it's a really easy one to kind of grasp how Ayurveda can help. And it's also really easy because we're like, I didn't realize that that was considered constipation. And we'll go into that later. So that's how it is in the human body. And then as we would see it like a problematic or out of harmony, would be in the mind. And you always look at it in the body, you're looking at the mind, the digestion, and the elimination for, is it a problem, basically. It's like a flow chart. Does it bother your mind? No. Okay. Does it bother your digestion, your capability to eat food? Yes or no. Does it bother your elimination? Yes or no, right? And that's kind of how you can figure out, yeah, this is actually a bigger deal, or, oh, no, okay, no big deal. So in the mind, vata shows up as like schizophrenia, anxiety, the depression type anxiety, like you'll see that there's like every like proper diagnosis, like we'll say depression, there's always a vata, a pitta, and a kapha type depression. So vata type depression is usually fast moving. They're not usually the ones that are paralyzed on the couch, or like the lazy depression, right? It's like an anxiety type depression. And think movement of the mind, too much future planning, too much past regret, right? Not living in the moment. And then in digestion in the body is, and see, this is how you can remember this, because again, I'm exemplifying what's basically wrong. I'm telling you the fault of that dosha. And that's literally what it means. There's a problem in the body. If you have anxiety or you have gas, there's too much vata. But if you don't have those faults or that dosha, then there's not an accumulation of it. So just to kind of full circle back to that. And then with digestion, with vata, you see it as burping, hiccuping, passing gas, and vata gas has no smell at all. You see it as constipation. You see it as stomach cramps. Like, if you've ever been, like if you drink cold water and then you get stomach cramps before or after you eat your meal, and then you feel that like muscle cramping in your belly, that's due to vata. Or just anxiety in general in the belly, and leads to stomach cramping. And then with elimination, like I said, most elimination, if it's going to be problematic due to vata, is going to be related to constipation. Okay.
Would
So,
nausea count? Like,
what?
like being anxious to the point of throwing up? Maybe not if you realize that you're throwing up because of your anxiety, but would that also fall under this, or would it?
Yeah, I would say so. I know it's kind of a brief description, but I would say if you or the person knows that it is related to anxiety, absolutely. So within each, and this is where like Ayurveda is not complicated, but it's very sophisticated. So within the Vata dosha, there are 5 what we call vayus, the winds of the body. So the upward motion is called I think it's Uddiyana. Wait, Anna. I'm not completely sure that's how you spell it. But the winds of the body, like somebody that can throw up frequently or very easily, or even having that acid reflux, is related to the upward movement of the winds of the body. Yeah, great question. Yeah. So don't forget about the positive features. So like I said, dosha means fault. That means there's too much of that one element in the body. But Vata people are incredibly creative. They get lost in the ethers when they're painting, or they're a great potter and they don't follow plans or blueprints, or cooks, right? Chefs are really good at not following recipes and just creating this, or interior designers, or just using that intuition, that intuitive flow of how you can be taken away easily, but within balance. Vata is so helpful, and it gets those people out of the stagnation of being in routine, of doing the same thing. I am highly attracted to Vata type individuals, like on an energetic sense, because as a Pitta dominant person, I'm really organized, I'm very routine, I try to be really articulate with my words, and I can kind of get a little bit serious, right? And I need Vata to help me play. Like, take me away. Do you want to go on a road trip today? Okay, yeah, let's go. And that's a challenge to me in a good way. Yeah. Earth type, earth dominant and kapha dominant people need Vata. Pitta can go either way, right? So I challenge you also to think of the people, one, that you're in close relationship with, two, who are you most around? And we're just talking about Vata right now. Is that your boss? Is that your child? Is that the person you don't get along with? Is it somebody, does all of this sound interesting, or does it sound like, oh, wow, being Vata sounds really hard, or, whatever kind of opinion you have about it. So I challenge you to think of it as it relates to you. Okay. So any questions so far about Vata dosha and how it presents in the body? Yes, you will always, this is a great question. Thank you, Jenny, for bringing that up. So you're never going to be one dosha. Okay, there's a term called Vikruti and Prakruti. I have to phonetically sound it out. So Vikruti is the present moment dosha. Okay, so right here, right now, I objectively am telling you my face is red, my body temperature is pretty hot. I wouldn't say that I'm stressed, I would say that I'm stressed, but I wouldn't say that I'm angry. I am just feeling sort of this pressure of things for me to complete, right? And for me, I have to anticipate. And is that me? Is it because I've been attracted to being a nurse for my financial income? Nurses are very task oriented, right? When I am looking and taking care of a patient, I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And literally I'm like, okay, well, I obviously don't want them to die. So how am I going to prevent that? Or I don't want them to throw up. So how am I going to prevent that? And that's how I am in this present moment. But also, so that's Vikruti, right? And let's just say, and remember, I'm a nurse, so I'm probably going to talk about like poop and throw up and bodily fluids. It doesn't bother me. And if you bring it up, it doesn't bother me. So just be ready if that's not okay with you. Let's just say I had loose stools this morning, which I can't like accentuate enough how important proper elimination is, and we'll go over that. But I didn't have loose stools because I've worked really hard to have proper elimination. But let's say I have this red skin, you know, I'm a nurse, I'm telling you these things, I'm very task oriented, I need play, but come December, when it's actually colder and the environment matters where you are, my Vikriti, my present moment, will not be as Pitta or fire dominant. Okay. But knowing what you know about me, Prakriti is your long-standing dosha. That's what you were given since conception. So I know, and I'm telling you now, that since I was 8, like I used to organize my trolls or clean my room or organize the fridge or something really task oriented, right? Or know that I knew that I wanted to become a nurse, and I did everything I did like since I was 10, like started volunteering at the hospital. Like I saw that anticipatory need, and then I backed up and accomplished that. And sometimes my accomplishments are I have that tenacity to grip too tightly. So you will always have more than one dosha. It usually presents in the environment that you're in, the foods that you're eating, and the season will help you determine, is it your Vikriti, the present moment, or your Prakriti of what you were given. Okay, does that make sense? The differentiation between Vikriti and Prakriti? Yeah, childhood goals. And whatever it is, it's just like you're not, I think tenacity really describes that really well. It's completely, nothing is, whatever that is, nothing is going to get in your way. No obstacle will change that. And maybe it's your dharma, right? I do believe that it was my dharma to become a nurse, and I fulfilled that, and I feel accomplished, but I also know that I want something more. So I know that there's more of my dharma through Ayurveda. Yeah. Okay. So it's just now 10. Let's talk about Vata foods, and then we'll take like a 5-minute break or so. Okay. So knowing what you know about Vata, that it's comprised of the air and ether elements, what type of foods, you can just put them in the chat if you want, or you can, I don't care what you do. If nobody says anything, I'll call on people. What type of foods do you think would be Vata type foods? Something that's light and airy. Grapes, cotton candy, yep. Salads, fruit, yes, keep going. What about vegetables? What about snacks? Think of snacks like chips, popcorn, apples especially, salads, anything. If you, okay, imagine you have a plate of food, whatever that is. If you put a fan on it, is it going to blow away? Okay, so anything that's light and airy, yes. No roots, no potatoes. If it grows in the air, not necessarily, because think of like an avocado, right? So it's light, it's airy. Maybe if you eat it, it gives you gas. Maybe if you've ever really kind of dived into your relationship with food, like, is it crunchy, right? Like popcorn, chips, carrots, raw carrots, anything raw, any raw vegetable, fruits just as they are, obviously are raw. They can be Vata provoking. Any dried fruit?
I have a quick question. Are you saying that if you're a Vata, like if you're prone to be Vata, that this is food you'd be drawn to, or this is good for them? Or what?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So these are Vata type foods. So the food has air and ether qualities in it. And usually when a Vata type person has an excess amount of Vata, they're going to be seeking Vata foods. So the whole thing is very provoking. And the whole goal of Ayurveda is, let's say this Phoebe on Friends. Let's just say that she's a Vata type person. She lives in Colorado. It's dry, windy, airy. It's cold. We'll just put ourselves into December. So now it's really arid. Now her environment is provoking that, and all she eats is raw salads, smoothies, coffee, and let's say like a sandwich, right? All of that is provoking the Vata deeper and deeper and deeper. So when I express that these foods are Vata type foods, it means they have the qualities of air and ether. Does that make sense?
Totally. I have a Vata kid. I mean, as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is my
Yeah.
son. And these are the foods that he goes to. So this is fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. There's a great book for children. It's called Perfect Health. Oops. Health for Kids. And his name is John Douillard. And I've seen him speak. Oh my God, he's so amazing. His website is called lifespa.com. And he has like a mazillion articles. But his focus in this book is children. And this goes from like conception, babies, toddlers, teenagers, adults, elderly. We're all human beings, and all doshas affect all walks of life, right? Yes, Jenny, you got it. So if we want to, we'll just say we're Phoebe in this example, right? So we're Phoebe on Friends. We can't change who we are, right? And we can't change our bodily disposition. Sometimes we can or cannot change our environment, but you can change the foods that you're eating and the Ayurveda practices that help balance the Vata. So yes, you always do the opposite. You always offer and attract the opposite dosha to balance the dosha out of balance. And in this way, the cure to Vata is Kapha, is earth and water. Okay, and we'll get to that when we talk about Kapha. Okay, so those are the Vata foods that have air and ether. Okay, and the smoothies are a huge one, especially in our Western culture. We put fruits and vegetables together. We use it with ice. We usually drink it on the go. Are you eating in your car? How you eat is much more impactful than what you're eating. And if you have McDonald's and you bring it home and sit with it and have reverence for that food, it will be more easy digested than a home cooked meal that you eat in your car on the way to work because of how you're eating it. You truly can only do one thing at a time. So when you're eating, just eat. Sit down and eat. Okay. So we're just taking a piece at a time. And then when we get to Kapha, you'll see, which you guys can probably already assume what's happening in your head, but you'll see how this balances Vata. Okay, and we are in Vata season right now. As soon as I think when the leaves started changing here in Colorado, it's hard to tell because it moves. Like we had snow in September, but that wasn't really Vata season. But now we are in Vata season in Colorado. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, her anxiety got worse. Yeah, it might have been too. Hot foods can be really drying. So think of like an ignition of, and this will make sense, Corey, with when we talk about pitta. Okay, but let's take just like a a 5-minute break. I just need to refill my water, make sure everything's going okay in my household. So we're talking about vata, and then when we come back, we'll talk about pitta. Okay, just like 5 minutes. Okay, I just put 3 book recommendations in the chat. The first one is actually what I used to teach the 300 hour with, and I really like this one. It's just easy to understand. The print is a little small, but otherwise it's great. It looks like this. But it has real life scenarios. It goes over allergies. It talks about veganism and vegetarianism. It has, I think it has its own little dosha quiz. Usually any book, especially a cookbook of Ayurveda, is always going to have its own rendition of Ayurveda. And that's what I really like, because it is different to to everyone's perspective, but like I said, it's not complicated. It's the sophistication of Ayurveda, I think, that helps it be preserved into, because this is many, many thousands of years old, right? The other one is yoga and Ayurveda. And this one is, it's pretty deep. It has a lot of more of the yogic philosophy in it. Like it talks about prana, tejas, and ojas, if you know what those are. It talks about the chakras, the nadis, all in relation to Ayurveda. And it has poses in here, like which poses are good for Vata, which poses are good for Pitta, and we'll just very briefly talk on that.
Sorry, but can you tell me the first book again? I was in the bathroom and
Oh yeah, it's in the chat too. It's Prakriti by Dr. Robert Sobota.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the last one is called Healing Your Life. And the reason I like this is I went to the California College of Ayurveda in California, and it's established by Mark Halpern, and he wrote this very simple, easy to read book. So if you're interested in that, again, it just is, every book is going to have a different rendition of what Ayurveda means and how they explain it, right? You're not going to explain it the same way I explain it, and I'm not going to explain it the same way you do. So I try to make it as easily to understand as possible. And I'm really proficient at educating children within the healthcare system. So you have to make it really easy. And so I really try to just make it easily bite-sized pieces, right? And there's, as we go on, there's a few more book recommendations too, but these are like the narrative reading books, not necessarily resource books that you would go to. I would recommend that you read this like all the way through. Yeah. Corey said hot foods digested them, not that they were necessarily physically hot. Yeah. Yeah, keep that in mind, Corey, and we'll, after we talk about Pitta, see if that kind of sinks in a little bit. Okay, so any questions on the Vata dosha, Vata type expression in the body, Vata type illnesses or disease processes, and Vata type foods? Okay. And remember, this is just like a real sliver of the vastness of Ayurveda. Okay. And when you eat lunch today, notice how you're eating it. What are you eating? Are you drinking your water through or with ice? Room temperature water is the best, or if not hot water, is the best that you can do for your digestion. And you see this in like every country except for the US, even in Europe, right? Ice is a commodity. Ice is something that we as humans never really had. And so if you can drink room temperature water or heat in that very simplistic way, not make any other dietary changes, you will enhance your digestion, okay? Because it helps with absorption. And Phoebe, my dog, is back, if you want to see. Phoebe, you want to say hi? Come here. Can you say hi? She's being really shy. Do you want to say hi? No? Okay. Okay, so Pitta is the second dosha. And if you always, when you're describing it and when you think about it, always go Vata, Pitta, Kapha. How is this food? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. How is this season? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. How is this in my body? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Because it goes from least dense to most dense. And that's how you describe the elements. That's how you describe the seasons. That's how you describe food. That's how you just describe the doshas, literally anything. And if you always are consistent and you always go in that order, it will start to sink in a little bit easier. So Pitta is comprised of fire and water. And in this context, water is oil. And that, think of it as, that it'll make sense in just a minute. Okay, so the pitta element is hot, or the pitta dosha is hot. It's too much heat accumulated in the body. It's some of Ayurveda uses like a poetic sense, but like Vata, you can't always see the winds of the body, but you see it in the expression of wind coming out. But in Pitta, you can actually see the heat, right? You can see redness in the skin. Any rashes on the body are due to Pitta. Any, like if you're allergic to poison ivy, if you have gray hairs, right? Austin at Cambio is a perfect example of a Pitta dominant person. With gray, if anyone has gray hairs, or if those people you're thinking of have gray hairs, the reason the color has come out of the hair is because the fire has burned it out. So in a way, it's like a leftover kind of ash, right? And if you think about, like, let's say Bill Clinton, right? He's like all silvery gray. Well, he's very Pitta. Here, do you need to go out? Can you go out? Thank you. Pittas are really good leaders. They're very organized. They can also get really hot. They usually tend to eat a lot of red meat. It's probably no coincidence that Bill Clinton, for this example, he had a heart attack. He used to eat a lot of hamburgers, so I read, and now he's vegan. And I think that's really inspiring on a lot of different levels, but I don't know how you couldn't have a heart attack being a president in the first place. And secondly, people that are Pitta, again, are attracted to Pitta type foods. They're attracted to Pitta type activities, spicy foods, yes. And I'm talking like habanero, like oily, spicy foods rather than wasabi. Because wasabi kind of is hot and then it goes away, right? But say like a habanero green chili that you put on your eggs in the morning is very hot and lingering. And this is the context of water being in the Pitta dosha. Yeah. Yeah, and usually if you have an affinity for a particular food, you're like, I love blah, 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 or I can't live without blah, blah, blah. That's probably a good indication and maybe a little eye-opening to you why you like those foods, right? Okay, so as even for me, as I'm describing these, I go through the same thing. I go through Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and I always check in with the mind. I always check in with the digestion, and I always check in with elimination. So Pitta type people in the mind can be very aggressive. They can be very angry. They can be like Yosemite Sam, right? The cartoon character. He's just like, "Brr." And at any moment you can be like, I'm just going to explode. Whether you're in balance or not, that's just a quality that you're exhibiting. That's a Pitta type quality. Go ahead.
So we got hot for Pitta. Did you say the temperature of Vata? I may have missed it.
Oh, in general, it's just usually they have like cold fingers, and cold toes. It's, think of in the body, think of it as the climate, right? It's dry. It's kind of like today. It's dry, windy, and arid. And then Pitta is always more of the dry heat rather than a moist heat. Like think of Colorado heat versus Florida heat.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's where I'm from. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Asian furry. Yeah. So digestion, Pitta has the best digestion, the best Agni. It's like an iron stomach. Two people you take to the same restaurant, Vata will be like, oh man, I just don't feel good. They claim to have food poisoning like every other day, or abdominal cramping. And the Pitta person will be like, I didn't notice anything. It's just, I just digested it, you know? And I am one of those people. I can just eat just about anything, as long as, and think of it like an incineration, that you can assimilate the nutrients. And it's not just because you can eat anything, it's that you're eating when you're hungry, you're eating at the times of the day, right? The best time of the day to eat is straight up noon, regardless of the season. And with that Pitta time, the Pitta digestion, and the Pitta type person will assimilate their food more easily. And literally anything, like the time of day, the season, the life space that you're in, the developmental stage that you're in your life, it all has a Vata, Pitta, and Kapha connotation. Okay, so Pitta environment would be hot and dry, and Pitta season is summer. Pitta lifetime development, or developmental stage, is puberty until like retirement, if you want to think of it that way. You're have this strong life force energy, ready to accomplish. You're like, I can go out and change the world. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to do this. Nobody can stop me. Maybe your ego is bigger than you think it is. And think of teenagers, right? They like to eat kind of whatever they want. Most of them can digest whatever they want. Most of them have a really strong, like, I'm going to do this no matter what, right? It's not, don't let it be confused with stubbornness. Okay, it's a drive. It's like a train that you can't get off. I call it the Pitta train. No stopping allowed. Elimination. Usually Pitta type bodies will have looser stools or hot stools. Even urine. When you go to the bathroom, and you'll be checking on this, you're like, I didn't know that my pee could be hot or cold. But if you've let's just say a Pitta type person, will say Bill Clinton woke up in the morning, he's like, I got to get this and this done, this is on my to-do list. I drink coffee. So I also use coffee and Vata, because coffee is, remember, like wants to be like in the natural world, but also in humans. So if you're a Vata type person, you want to get lifted, they usually use stimulants, right? And as far as addiction, like cocaine, coffee, stimulants, Adderall, anything that, and even ecstasy, like anything that takes you into the ethers that makes you do more, that's what Vata wants to do, right? Pitta wants to be more like direct, more laser beam, more focused. So they drink coffee, or have an affinity to coffee, because it allows them to be more productive. And you could say the same for cocaine in that regard. It just like highly focuses you on what you want to do. But the Pitta type, so the Pitta type person wakes up in the morning and is like, okay, I have this, and this to do. I'm really organized. I'm going to have coffee. And they use the coffee to help promote a bowel movement. And now you've increased the heat in your body, and now your urine, you can feel it. The energetic sense of your urine is hotter if you have a Pitta imbalance. Your stools will be looser, meaning not formed like a banana. Okay, that's like the perfect stool. It has no smell. You hardly have to use any toilet paper. It's easy come, easy go. Like, you don't have to spend a lot of time on the bathroom. You don't have to do a whole lot of sort of instigating to make the bowels move. Pitta type people use coffee to have a bowel movement. And in excess, it would be like, in this regard, I think, is this what you were talking about, Corey, with the, no, she said anxiety. But Pitta type anxiety will be like I need something to turn out and I'm anxious about the anticipatory results and that's not happening. Therefore, I have loose stools, right? And if you've ever had that, like you may have had it like once or twice, like maybe at the airport, you know, it might have been like, oh God, I don't know what to do, like since 9/11, or if anybody's flown in 2020, like we may have had a loose stool, but that doesn't mean that you have a pitta type imbalance, right? It has to be cumulative, and usually it's around like 3 to 6 months that you would consider it manifested out of balance for pitta. But anyways, that's the stool sort of bowel characteristics of a pitta type imbalance. Okay, so remember, and I can't focus on this enough or accentuate this, is that what I'm describing may seem like all negativity, or this is a problem, or this is a fault, or you need to fix this to be in balance. But everything that we're describing is only there because it's accumulated. So pitta type people are really good leaders. They're very well organized. They're very good at following through. They love projects and love to accomplish. They also love to help people accomplish. Maybe the Vata type person isn't accomplishing or completing the project, and they need the Pitta person to come in and say, okay, well, you just have to do these 3 things and let me help you get motivated, right? Think of this in like a managerial sense, and then think of it in like a relationship that you're in, and think of it as, well, did you go back and clean this out, or did you go back and check your work, or whatever it is, like with children, right? If you're, hey, get over there, the cat's on the drapes. Just a second. Hey. The Pitta type parent will make sure that the child is staying on course. Or are you homeschooling, right? How good of a homeschool parent are you if you're just kind of like, oh, well, do some work today and we'll see what happens, which I'm totally a fan of unschooling. But for these purposes, if you're a Pitta type parent, you are exhibiting organization and the flow chart, and you do this, this, and this, and then you can have whatever free time, right? And let me back up a little bit. For the Pitta type person that has a mind imbalance, I said that they would be like aggressive and angry, which is true, but in the form of addiction, they're going to be rooted in something that is very heating and fiery, like alcohol, or like a workaholic, right? If you watch the show Mad Men, like Don Draper, right? He's very chauvinistic, very male, sexist. That's all like a Pitta imbalance, right? And again, these are like, if I'm using like celebrity examples, that's like, you may or may not encounter that in your life. It's just so you can grasp. It's not saying that everybody will have that characteristic of Pitta. Okay. Yeah, any questions on Pitta type people or their characteristics before we talk about food with Pitta? And I didn't say about Vata, the developmental stage of Vata is later in life. So again, it's not a hard line, but we'll say for women, it's after menopause. For men, you could just say retirement age, right? And Pitta is always in the middle. It's always accomplishing. It's always going after that drive, and you're still working, and you're still providing, and you're still really living in your own control, or as much as you can be in control. Hey, stop doing that, please. I got this I got this cat on Craigslist and he's really cute, but I've always had dogs. I've never had a kitten. So it's an adventure. So pitta type foods. So what are some examples? Just go ahead and put them in the chat. So think of hot, fiery, maybe oily foods. Salsa, yes, tomatoes are very heating. Pork rinds. Pork is definitely heating. Cheese, yes, cheese is very heating. Cheese is different than dairy in Ayurveda terms, but cheese is heating. Red meat, absolutely. Lemons are acidic, but they come after you've digested it in the process. They actually alkalinize the body, so they're very good to help pitta. Coffee, curry, fried chicken, anything fried. Yes, anything citrus like grapefruit, oranges, lime is cooling, right? Think of that when you think of citrus as cooling. Okay. I mean, when you think of citrus as heating, think of the exception as lime, because lime is cooling and lemon is alkalizing. So it's the lemon and lime is very helpful for pitta. High fat. It depends on if it's like a fatty burger. Usually fat is fairly cooling for pitta. Yeah. I can't speak to elk. I would just say that it's a type of red meat. Yeah. Yeah. Food combinations are huge. Huge. Remember, it's how you eat rather than what you eat as a priority. So bananas and milk should never, hey, stop that. Bananas and milk should never be combined. And think of like a milkshake or a banana smoothie. And what's really cool about Ayurveda is go out and try it. Make yourself a banana smoothie with like cow's milk and see how your belly feels. Or have a banana split and see how your belly feels. It just doesn't, it's the way that the enzymes react together. And it basically it's like baking soda and vinegar. It just bubbles up. Specifically bananas and milk. And another huge one is fish and milk. So think of like if you make fish with a cream sauce or fish with butter or I don't know, fish sticks and like a cream sauce, cream tartar or cream of tartar or whatever. Fish and milk just shouldn't be combined. No, it only applies to cow's milk. Yeah. So go out and test it, right? Or make yourself a banana smoothie with cow's milk. And you can put other things in there like, I don't know, make like banana, mango, milk, and some ice. And see how your belly feels. Is it cramping? Did you get gas? Do you feel full? Are you using it as a meal replacement? Are you drinking it in the car? And then go back and make the same thing with almond milk or oat milk or coconut milk. And just that one variable, see how your belly feels. And the whole thing with being cold, like actually physically cold, like a smoothie or ice water or iced beverage, is it constricts the blood vessels in the digestive system. And what you need when you're eating is lots of blood flow. You need expansion, you need ease, you need just like as if you came out of a yoga class and your belly is like, whoa, okay, let's take this on. So if you're really kind of dilated and ready to accept that meal, assuming that your digestive fire, your Agni, is stoked enough, if you have something that's cooked rather than raw, you're enhancing that capability of digestion and assimilation. And the opposite of pitta is both vata and kapha. So, okay, think of it, right? Vata and kapha are opposites, but pitta is in the middle. So pitta kind of splits their time, and pitta needs kapha. Pitta needs vata to be balanced. And then kapha needs a little bit of pitta. Vata needs a little bit of pitta. Does that make sense? Okay. So those are all provoking foods, and if you to pitta, and if you've ever had, let's say you had just a real, you have good strong digestion and you were hungry and you ate it, but then you had like kind of a fatty spicy meal, or like a Creole. My dad is from Louisiana. Hey. That was a cat that just went by. Like a spicy Creole, like étouffée or something, and then you immediately have to go to the bathroom after that meal, or you have to wake up at midnight and go to the bathroom. That's an indication that it's too spicy. It's too heating, I should say. Spice is good. Cinnamon, ginger, coriander. Curry is a blend of spices. Asafoetida, which is also called hing powder. Hing. All of those are really helpful. Oh wait, am I typing to, whoops. I think that went to only Lisa, sorry, everyone. There we go. Hing powder. Hing powder is, it's like a root. All of those spices are helpful to digestion, but if it's too much heat, energetic heat, then you will know pitta is like, whoa, have to get rid of this heat. If I can't express it in my anger, if I can't express it in my skin, I'm going to express it in my bowels. Okay, excuse me. Does that make sense for pitta type foods? Okay. Okay, so kapha. Kapha is the last dosha. And oh, look, hang on, let me explain the water oil in pitta. Okay, so this is where Ayurveda is poetic, right? So we all know that you can't start a literal fire with water, okay? But in your body, the fire, think of where it is water, think of like bile, like when you're throwing up, like if you've ever had a hangover and you're throwing up, right? It's not that you're throwing up heat, but you're throwing up the water that is bile, that is very oily, that is very hot. And if you think of that nauseous feeling, regardless of dosha, it's a very heating feeling. Okay. So the last dosha is kapha. And the reason I wanted to explain the pitta water is because you're still going to use water to explain kapha. But this is the sense of actual water in the body. Okay, so kapha is comprised of the elements of earth and water. So earth obviously is dirt, trees, stability, furniture, the world around us, mud, bones, teeth in the body, the density of your skin. So the way you test the density of your skin is, and this is really cool to do in person, but you can do it on yourself. But the skin right here underneath your wrist, and I think you can see it, but mine's like really thin, right? And it moves a lot. I'm looking at people's, I think Caleb's is pretty kapha-like. I can't see everyone. Let me see. Any kapha? Max's is even, I think Max has maybe a little bit more kapha. Max and Kayla can do it to each other. You can just see, and you just feel it. It's like, oh, wow, your skin is actually way different than mine. obviously because we're all made differently, right? It's a fingerprint, but to test the density of your skin, yeah, or Lisa, you can hardly do it. That means that you have a lot of oh, what's the word? It's called tinting in medical terms, tinting. So a kapha type person doesn't have a lot of tint to their skin, or no, sorry, it's called turgor. I don't know what I was saying. It's skin turgor, but it's also tinting. So anyways, either one of those words. A kapha type person does not have a lot of skin turgor, but a vata type person has a lot, right? It just like moves a lot and you can see it. And another good place is like right here, depending on how dehydrated you are, if you can pull a lot right there. Oh, that's okay, Lisa. So in the body, kapha represents like the stable part. So I said bones and teeth, and if you've never broken a bone, that's an indication that you have a fair amount of kapha. I've broken 3 bones. And I honestly think the only kapha capability or characteristics I have is to be a caregiver and a good cook, because I like to serve others, right? You can say that everybody likes to serve, but there are people like Oprah Winfrey, like she likes to serve everyone, right? She's a good example of a kapha characteristic. And the kapha type body feature, if you don't know who Jennifer Goodwin is, I think she was on one of those reality singing shows or something, but she has like a perfectly round face. Okay, Pitta has more of the angular jaw and angular cheekbones. They have really penetrating eyes. Vata is really long, right? And Kapha is very round. And if you think of the earth, think of trees, round. Think of the earth, round. Think of that your heart in giving. It's usually like a rounded sort of depiction in your eyes, right? Or to me it is. Kapha type people have really round eyes, like Zooey Deschanel too, if you know who that is, or like, you know, Elsa on Frozen. She has really kapha eyes. There's a whole spin-off of like the infantilism. Does anybody know what that is? It's kind of like, I don't want to get too much into it, but it's like a syndrome we have as a country. Like we always want to be younger. And if you look at Disney movies from like the 80s and 70s, their eyes aren't as big and they've progressively gotten like bigger and more younger looking, right? That's just kind of a spinoff. But the point is that kapha type features are very rounded eyes, maybe even bulging a little bit. Kapha type people have really thick hair, like the beautiful Pantene, like just grows all the time. Pitta type people have medium, kind of fine, like this little fuzzy hair, right? And Vata people usually have kind of coarse, dry hair. And in the mind, kapha type people are very caring. They're very attached to things, sentimental. And everyone has a particular dosha. Like my disposition as pitta, I can get lost in vata and I'm attracted to vata type characteristics, but I also have a strong amount of kapha because I love sentimental, any kind of story, any kind of emotion. Like these windows up here are from my dad's farm, right? And I love these windows because of the story, the feeling that I have, that like that characteristics, affinity that I have is a characteristic of kapha. Worst case would be like a hoarder type scenario, right? You're probably not going to find a Vata type hoarder. You're probably going to find a Kapha type hoarder. Like, oh, everything has meaning. I don't want to leave this relationship. You can't really separate oil and water. They're always together. You can't separate mud, right? It's always the water with the earth. Vata or Kapha people have a hard time leaving relationships if it's not beneficial for them. They are your really, really standby foundational friends. You want these people in your life. They're very trustworthy. If you're going to buy something from Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you want to buy it from a Kapha type person. You don't want to buy it from a Pitta type person. They'll like swindle you. And think of your boss. Like, would you rather have a Vata boss or a Pitta boss or a Kapha boss? I'd rather have a Kapha boss. But it depends on what kind of person you are, right? That's just, Kapha is very softening. They're very sweet.
There's a couple of us with some questions. You want us to just go for it?
Oh yeah, go. Sorry, is it not in the chat?
No, we were just raising our hands.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just go for it.
Okay. So I have a question on the profile that you were talking about. So like I went through and did that earlier.
Oh, good.
And so like almost 50-50 Pitta Vata and then a tiny bit Kapha, but then it goes through and it says, it asks for the imbalances. And so I have a high Kapha imbalance, it says. So like, does that even make sense, or did I just answer some questions wrong?
Yeah, no, you did. So that's speaking to the Vikriti and the Prakriti. So at your present moment, you said you're Pitta Vata dominant, but the Kapha is out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's speaking to, you probably have a fair amount of Kapha. You seem really stable and just and in your voice, right? And these, to everybody listening, it's like when people talk to you and present themselves to you, they're giving you a whole depiction of how they view themselves. So your voice isn't shaky. It looks like your hair, I can't really tell. It looks fairly like soft, baby fine, maybe. So if your kapha is out of balance, that's probably a long standing, like since you were like 10, let's just say. But and that's your prakriti. You cannot change. But your present moment is your pitta and vata. Given that we're in vata winter season, it would probably behoove you to work on the vata pitta imbalances.
Sorry, I'm a little bit confused. It said the kapha was the one that was imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that's probably how. So that's like, so say, and you took it once or twice.
Just.
But you got once, but you got 2 results, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I got like the circle, which is like 50% pitta, like probably another 45% vata, and then like a tiny sliver of kapha. And then it's the second half says the primary imbalances are in kapha. And I was just curious, since there was so tiny of a sliver of that, if that made sense or if it just.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me explain it differently. So you're long standing, you probably answered the questions accurately. It's not like you can answer them wrong. But if it's a small percentage you're saying of kapha that is the primary imbalance, that, given the information that you're telling me, that's probably your long standing, like what you were born with is out of balance. Okay. Yes, it means that you have vata and pitta tendencies, but I'm objectively assessing you. I'm telling you that you have probably a fair amount of kapha. So if it's saying that your kapha is out of balance, is your primary imbalance, right? And I'm saying you are a kapha type person, long standing, to help your you can't change that, right? So okay, your kapha for a long time, it's saying your kapha is out of balance. Great, good info. Cast that aside. But what the more percentages are in the pie circle that it gave you is saying that right now, like today, because you live in Colorado, it's not literally saying that, but I'm saying because you live in Colorado, because the seasons changed, your vata and pitta are out of balance. Even though it's the difference between the vikriti and the prakriti. If you take the quiz again, and in your mind think, has this been out of balance for 6 months or less? And then see if you get different results. And if it's the same, if it comes back with the kapha out of balance, that's saying that that's your long-standing, okay, this is what we need to work on. This has nothing to do with season. It has nothing to do with diet. It's what you were giving, your innate tendencies are out of balance. Does that kind of clarify it a little bit?
Yeah, that helps. I was just curious how to really read the results of it. So that should help.
Look up the difference between also Vikriti and Prakriti, and it should be on Banyan's website as well. Yeah. Who else had a question?
So I did. So when I'm listening, the characteristics that you describe, like for kapha, I don't match at all. But in terms of the other ones, I don't really match either in terms of personality, or like I'm not drawn to spicy foods at all. I can't, but I run hot, but then, so it's like I'm a mix of all of them. So it's like, I don't quite know, can you be a mix of two? Because like like kapha is probably what I'm drawn to more, even in terms of like personality. I'm not a leader. I'm not the one who's going to sit there and organize everybody. I'm not, I will if I have to, but it's not really what I'm drawn to. So I'm just confused about how you tell, and I know that the test will probably do it, but I don't know.
So I think primarily realize that so there's a term called tridoshic, which rarely people are truly tridoshic. You have to be like 33.3% of each dosha. And yes, it exists, but usually it's pretty rare. But we're always going to relate to every dosha, right? And if I'm describing this, even as my like celebrity examples, it's like, oh yeah, but I like Phoebe. She's eccentric. Or yeah, I could be a leader like Bill Clinton. Like I want to run this company, or I want to start my own business, or I'm good at following through. And then kapha, like I want to give more, like Oprah, and I'm a caregiver. The fact that you, Corey, were talking about your dog just a little bit, to me, that's an indication that you like to nurture. And even your speech, I mean, I know that I'm the presenter, so I'm probably speaking like a little bit more segmented and a little bit more rapid than I would like in conversation, but your speech is just a little bit slower, and people that are kapha like are just kind of like really in the moment, like, hey, I really want to experience this with you. This is really important to me. And you linger in the empathy, which is a good thing, right? So to me, just in your little excerpt of talking, it's like you're presenting more kapha than anything else. But you're always going to relate to every dosha. So I think, and this always gets a little bit confusing. I know that it can be. And the only thing I can say is to really take that test 3 times. Take it, like Jenny, you were saying, you took it kind of without having prior knowledge. Take it again later this evening after everything sinks in, and then take it one more time with the thought of, has this been present for 6 months or less? Or are you answering the question, has it been true for my entire lifetime? Like since I was 10 or 12 or 8 or however it is, you know? And I think that will give you more of a definitive clarity to which one to steer to, right? And there's no wrong answer. And this is why going through a full season with, or a full year with every season, is you will see how the pitta dosha will provoke your, or sorry, the pitta environment will provoke your pitta dosha if you truly have a pitta tendency. In this winter vata season that we're in, you will see if you're a vata type personality, that the wind will agitate you, that the cold is just bone chilling, you can't get warm, that you actually do eat smoothies and salads all winter long, that you don't really have an affinity for cooked foods or soups, right? So, and giving yourself a chance, spring is the kapha season, giving yourself a chance to see all 3 seasons, all 3 doshas, all 3 bodily characteristics. Does that help clarify, Corey and Jenny, just a little bit? I know it can be like overwhelming. Yeah. Yeah. I would say, so that's a huge indication. If you have inconsistencies and anything I'm saying, you're like, well, it's both, or it's variable, or whatever it is, any inconsistency is vata. And think of people, your teeth are a really good indication too. Big, long, stable teeth that are more like rounded or blocky. I can't think of anybody in particular, like a celebrity. That's a kapha feature. Usually they're whiter, just naturally. Pitta type people have really pointy eye teeth. Okay, and square teeth, like my teeth are really square. Okay, vata people have long, kind of crooked teeth, like British people. Okay. Yeah, there's a whole thing about Tom Cruise's, if you can tell if it's him. I don't know what it is. It's like the line on your teeth should line up with the line on your nose, and his doesn't. That's why it looks like he has 3 front teeth. It's like a whole weird, I don't know. I could get lost in there. Anyways, does that make sense about the teeth? The teeth and the hands are a big indication. So hands also, see how my hand is very square? Okay, Jenny's is, it is hard to tell on Zoom, but put your hand like this, Jenny. Your fingers, yeah, I think you have a predominant kapha feature. Her fingers are a little bit more thick. See how mine are like bony? You can see the joints a little easier. And even on the back, see right here. See, you can't see her bones like that. She has more kapha type characteristics in her hands than I do. And this part too, the tendon is sticking out, right? And Corey, yours, it looks pretty kapha too. Yeah. I think Christian's is, see how his is short, his looks shorter. Yeah. Kayla's is, I think, pretty good indication of vata. See how long her fingers are? Especially, I mean, literally measure it. If your fingers are longer than your palm, that's a vata characteristic. Yeah. And Diana's is wide. Okay. So all of these things, like nobody can change the shape of their hand, right? I mean, we want to, we have plastic surgery, we do this and that, but you can't change what you are giving. You cannot change your genetics. You cannot change your innate tendencies. So all of these are just objective facts. The things that we're seeing in our bodies, the things that we're seeing in the natural world, like the fact that trees grow roots, we can't change that. That trees are a kapha, regardless of the type of tree. It's a kapha earthly element, a living being element made of earth. Does that make sense? Okay. So kapha type people in the mind they're going to be, this is where I was like, don't get confused with the stubbornness. So kapha type people really kind of grasp and are almost glued to ideas, right? And they will stand by you in a relationship no matter what, but they will also not move in their stubbornness. It's like, no, this is how it is. You better take the highway. And it's not necessarily like my ideas are better. It's not ego based. It's just they are very stable and they're going to stay that way. And sometimes in that stability, they get stubborn in their digestive capabilities. Kapha people really only need 2 meals a day. If they're not hungry for breakfast isn't the most important day for everyone, or meal. It takes a while, like I was saying, it's kind of like a, slow and steady wins the race. For kapha, it takes a while for them to warm up. It takes a while for them to get hungry. It takes a while for them to make up their mind. And that it's okay. For me, if I'm moving too fast in my life, that's how I know I need my kapha people around me. Yeah. Your eating habits tell you a lot too. And the water element, think of like a cool, moist cave, if you will. How long does it take to kind of heat up the cave, right? Kapha people usually have a little bit clammy, cool hands, but they're not sweaty. They're not like profusely sweating. But it takes a while for their body to get warm. But when they're warm, they harbor the heat really well because they're made of earth. They have a lot more bodily tissue. Their digestion is, as long as it's good and it's hungry, like Jenny's saying, she doesn't even get hungry until 2, and she's honoring her body. She's not just eating because, or she's not eating for the ego taste. She's eating because she's not truly hungry until 2 p.m. But when you eat as a kapha person and you eat when you're hungry, you will help your body digest and assimilate the food. And then it lingers, right? Having spicy food is very helpful for kapha. Having lighter foods is very helpful for kapha. And we'll go over the foods in just a minute. Their kapha type elimination is slow and easy. It might take a little bit longer. So if they haven't eaten all day and then they eat, so they're probably not going to have a bowel movement until later either. Kapha people do really well with coffee, with stimulants, with movement, right? And as far as yoga goes, kapha people need vinyasa. They need the hot, right? And if you're doing like the Kapalabhati breathing at the end of the hot yoga, right? That is very helpful for kapha. Whereas pitta probably doesn't need that much invigoration. Kapha people also tend to get swelling more easily, like in their lymph, or if there's an injury, they tend to accumulate lymph for like illnesses a little bit easier. And the season of kapha is the spring. So you think of like the density and the strength it takes for those little roots to come up in the spring. Like endive, parsley, asparagus, garlic, all of those things are really, yes. Kapha people are really fertile. Do not mistake your fertility. If you are kapha, be on point. If you're a woman, and either obviously if you're easily able to get pregnant, or if you accidentally get pregnant, or if you just are really luscious in your secretions, right? That's a kapha type tendency. Yeah. Doshas are determined by karma and by the constitution is the word that's used, like your prakriti, your long-standing doshic tendency. So what is the constitution of the mother and the father at the time of conception? That is what determines the baby's prakriti or dosha. Yeah. So it is and it isn't hereditary. It is not in like the Western genetic sense, like I think that's called like the Punnett square, right? If you get blue eyes here and whatever that is. Ayurvedically, it's determined by the mother and father's constitution at the time of conception, but it cannot be changed. So if I'm a Pitta type person, but I'm not having, let's just say I'm a Pitta type person, but I'm not having a Pitta type lifestyle at the time, my baby will probably not be very Pitta, or especially if I don't have any Pitta out of imbalances. But if I'm Pitta and I'm having tons of Pitta problems, anger, aggression, I'm having a hard time balancing those Pitta tendencies, and it's out of balance, my baby will probably be more Pitta. So there's no hard definitive line, but Ayurveda says it's the constitution of the parents at the time of conception. And the regularity of women's cycles is not only with the seasons, but also with the cycles of the moon, also with the stability of kapha. So remember what is in the definition of health, it's well-functioning bodily processes. That takes into account of each dosha. So Vata, speaking of menstrual cycles, Vata has the most irregularity. Pitta has the most infertility. Pitta has the most heat, has the most pain. It has like the heat of your fluids that come out of you. And if you track your cycle, if you know if you don't use tampons, if you use a menstrual cup or a pad, right, there's a different temperature in the blood that's coming out of you. Kapha type people are usually easy breezy, bleed on point, like on the time, like cyclical. They don't deviate from the time. They can also have the most tendency with the most amount that they bleed. They bleed profusely, which obviously sometimes can be a problem. Speaking of kapha, right? Kapha has the most element, the most earth element. And so any tumor, any cancerous tumor, any growth like moles that grow kind of out of control, or endometriosis, or it's endometriosis, but it's also polycystic ovarian, PCOS, polycystic ovarian. Thank you. That is all kapha tendencies, right? A Vata type person or Pitta type person is probably not going to exhibit PCOS. It's going to be kapha type people. So if you know anyone or you're experiencing that, specifically with women's health, I behoove you to investigate this and know what can cause those, because it's not random. It's probably the foods you're eating. It's probably the environment. It's probably your practices. Okay. Meaning your habits, what's that word? It's another word for tendencies. Anyways. Okay, so does that make sense with kapha? Like, isn't it mind-blowing? And if you think of the word of Ayurveda, life knowledge, you're like, well, I didn't know that I had so much knowledge about my own life and my own disposition and my own characteristics. But you do, it's all available for you. Okay. So before we talk about kapha type foods, is there any questions about kapha type characteristics or imbalances, or any questions about kapha?
What are the kapha foods? Did we go through that?
No, not yet.
Oh, sorry.
So as far as like temperature goes, would it just be like a more like mild temperature? Like since it is springtime, like not necessarily like hot or cold, as far as like the temperature of foods, but also like their temperament and things like
Kapha,
that.
yeah. Think of it more of being, that's the water element. It's usually more cooler. Portland, like environmentally, like that's like a depiction of kapha, right? It can be warm, but it's usually humid, but it's not warm like Florida, right? Yeah, just pretty mild, just really stable. Yeah, the kapha stage in life is babies. So fertility, conception, babies, right? Think of their big eyes, their drooly mouth, their Buddha belly, their really soft skin, their squishy toes, right? Their soft poops. Lots of fluid everywhere. If you've never been around babies and toddlers, there's fluid everywhere. Breast milk. So kapha, you start off, you need the stability. You need the succulentness to sustain life. Okay. And then you grow, you're born, you grow into life, and you have this drive, you have this premonition, you have your dharma, you're growing. Metabolism is a pitta sort of role, right? So people that have you would say a high metabolism have a high pitta, right? They have a strong Agni, and you're growing, you do your family and you do your life and you figure it out, and mostly whatever that means. And then you're, it's not a, how do I eloquently say it? Vata is like the essence of going dormant, right? The Vata stage of life, we have less estrogen, we have less elastin, so we get wrinkles, we have less Agni and fire. So you don't see like an 85-year-old eating a steak dinner, but you probably see a lot of teenagers and 20-year-olds eating a steak dinner, right? With no problem, because they have that high Agni, that high digestion. And then the death, when it comes, is a Vata type dormancy, right? It's retracting. And if you mirror this to the seasons, right? The leaves go away, we're retracting, we're going into this Vata stage. Spring is kapha, it's life, it's succulent, it's when the most stable, like the little green buds that come out, like it takes a lot. Even hail, like it doesn't really damage those leaves or those buds. And then in pitta, it's this transformation, it's fruits, it's metabolism, it's vegetables, it's eating, it's tons of life, right? We all come out in the summertime. We're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's build a shed. Let's go camping. Let's go on a road trip, whatever it is. You're like really determined to do that in the summertime. Okay. So kapha type foods, go ahead and type them in the chat. So remember, it's earth and water. So really heavy, dense foods. Roots, stew, potatoes, rice. Yeah, any breads, any pastas, any meat. Yes. Think of dark meat. Yeah, bone marrow, bone broth. Chocolate is actually really astringent. It can be really drying, but sugar, like think of, we'll give 3 examples. So processed sugar is really drying. It's really heating to the body. Other things like honey and maple syrup really help build the dhatus, the tissues of the body, right? And then if you add like sugary of the sweet taste, right? Sweet doesn't have to be sugar. It could be like apples and cooked apples and peaches and baked goods like banana bread, right? That's a kapha type food. It's really dense. Usually it's high calorie. Milk, any milk, is really good. Well, it's a kapha type food. Okay. All the things I crave. Yeah. Ice cream. There's not most root vegetables are the only vegetables that are kapha like. Okay. So now that you know kind of all the foods, so now you're looking at, okay, let's take this vata type person that has a vata imbalance, and it's the vata season now. We're in Colorado. They drink coffee, they eat smoothies and salads and a sandwich in their car. Okay, so how could we balance that person? You could fatten up your coffee. You could put oil in it. You could wean off of coffee and go to matcha or chai. And chai has really good spice, so it's helpful for the digestion. You could not have smoothies or salads, right? Bowls are really good because it's cooked rice, cooked kind of sauteed greens, or a sweet potato bowl. And then snacks could be like fried apples or chili, soups, beans, all of that. All of the kapha foods balance vata. Warm beverages, taking baths, slowing down, doing yoga, right? Does that make sense? I think Belle and Jenny had a question. Go ahead.
I actually just had a quick comment. So I'm from Utah. It's really similar to the environment here. And we would always joke about like a lot of the recipes from that area. It's like meat and potatoes, it's cheese, it's stews, it's things like that. And I went to school in Hawaii for a year. And I noticed when I was living there, because I never had a tendency to really eat red meat. I didn't even eat meat till I was 12. So I kind of like had to, just because that's where I was growing up. But when I moved to Hawaii, it was very easy for me to live off of like papayas and like a musubi like for the day, because like I had like that environmental sustenance, and I was running at a higher heat, so I didn't need like that extra oomph. But then when I moved back to Utah, I would always joke that my blood had thinned out because I could not get warm. Like I had to start eating more potatoes and I had to start eating meat a little bit more, just to kind of like sustain myself through the winter time. So I thought that was a really interesting
Yeah, that's a great testimony to your environmental factors. And yeah, when you're hot, think of like if you've ever been to Florida or anywhere hot and humid, it's really hard to have like a hamburger or a steak and potatoes or even a hot meal, right? You want something that's easily digestible, that's light. So that speaks to the vata balancing the pitta and the kapha, right? And in Belle's example, she's living in this divine, magnificent, like there's so much food reverence specifically in Hawaii, and eating where you are, eating local matters. It matters so much. And it matters, like not everyone can digest tomatoes really well. Like they are inflammatory, or they give you heartburn, or they cause rashes or whatever, because it's not in your ancestry, it's not in your environment. And if you're already being provoked by that dosha, the pitta dosha, adding tomatoes is not going to help, right? And any nightshades for that matter. Yeah. So okay, so that's kind of in a snapshot how you balance vata by using kapha foods. And how you balance pitta is you need everything cooling and moist. Because remember, pitta is like hot and dry, like being in the desert where we are, or being Utah, like Moab, if you guys have ever been to Moab, like it's just like this like dry sandstorm heat furnace, and of course depending on when you go. But pitta usually needs cooling, like cilantro, coriander powder, eating fresh cilantro, lime, avocado, any green vegetable is good for any body, but it's specifically good for pitta because it's balancing to the liver. Okay, a couple of you spoke about liver imbalances. Eat more greens, and the whole celery thing, like in the morning, that's great. If you guys can tolerate that, sometimes I get a little nauseous with celery, fresh juice celery. It's by the medical medium guy. While it's not Ayurvedic, it is very helpful. Medical medium, right? And that talks about having celery first thing in the morning, really good for pitta, really good for the liver. So pitta doesn't necessarily need drier foods. They can tolerate a little bit of raw foods depending on the season. Nobody should be eating raw salads. Nobody should be eating cold smoothies. Nobody should be eating fruits that isn't in season now, regardless of dosha. Like, it's time to cook your foods. It's time to saute your greens. It's time to have greens in your soups. It's time to really work on your tea and your room temperature water rather than ice water, if those are your go-tos, right? And try it for a day. Just try drinking ice water all day and see how you feel. And then try drinking tea, right? And then kapha, so pitta needs a little bit of each on each side, right? But kapha really, come springtime, this is when we shed our natural little bit of weight, right? So we need lighter foods, we need raw foods, we need spicy foods. Garlic comes up, asparagus, parsley, endive, arugula, fruits, citrus. Like, if you do live in Florida, maybe I should go to Florida. I keep referencing Florida. If you do live in Florida, but also waiting till those citrus fruits become available to us and the rest of the country, it's time to eat citrus fruits in the winter, and like the clementines, the winter and the spring, right? Because they're heating. They're heating energetically. They're helpful for digestion. Okay, so we just have a little bit of time left, and I just want to be sure to squeeze kind of the high points in. So first, I want to talk about the 3 causes of disease. And, whoops, I think this is really helpful. So the first one is misuse of the senses. The second one is failure of the intellect. And the third one is the concept of parinama. Oops, parinama. Okay, so remember, you're a human being. You have 5 senses. We've gotten away from using all of this, right? We're like inside, we don't really know the rhythms of nature as much as, say, our ancient rishis that went off into the forest and meditated to get all these answers. And when specifically as the wise woman, I always try to use my cyclical knowledge for the cycles of the moon, for the cycles of my menstruation, for the cycles of anything that I can do to enhance my sensory use, right? So are you using your eyes, your nose, your mouth, the touch on your skin, and your hearing, right? This is the art of meditation. But when you misuse those, like if you constantly need to be touched or you're not touched at all, or if you're always looking with your eyes on the screen time or the TV, or if you're tasting, right? Who has known a friend that needs so much wasabi on their sushi dinner that they can't even taste it anymore, right? That's a misuse of the senses. Or so much Tabasco on their eggs that they can't even, you're like, isn't that spicy to you? Right? Because they keep enhancing the spice so they don't even know what spicy is. And this is kind of like, if you've ever experienced this or known somebody, they're like, oh, I don't like vegetables. They don't taste good to me. Well, they've misused the sense of taste. And yes, it's our culture. Yes, it's our food system. But they don't know what vegetables taste like because they've misused the sense of taste so much that they only have a palate for refined unfoods, not real food, right? So when you constantly misuse the senses, it's leading to the pathway of disease. And within Ayurveda, it's aggravation, accumulation, and manifestation. Okay, so first you aggravate that dosha so much, intentionally or not, that it leads to accumulation. And now once you've accumulated all this dosha, let's just say pitta, in your body, because we just came from summer. So I'll use myself as an example. We've just come from summer. I've aggravated my body by being aggressive and angry, and I'm eating hot foods. I'm drinking tons of coffee. I'm not getting a release. I'm not meditating. I'm not breathing. I'm really focused on the ego of completion. So that's really agitating and aggravating. And now I'm in the past season. The past season of summer is the current season of fall, of vata, right? So now I have too much heat, and then vata comes in with its wind and it like ignites the pitta, right? Like a bonfire, right? Now everything's just on fire in my mind, in this pitta body. So now I've accumulated enough, and now eventually, given enough time, I will manifest high blood pressure, heart attack, eczema, diabetes, any other kind of endocrine imbalance, right? Low thyroid, anything of the endocrine system. Does that make sense? Kind of how you get to the process of like a diagnosis or a label with Ayurveda? Okay, so the first one is misuse of senses. The second one is failure of the intellect. I know Oreos are not good for me, but I'm going to eat the whole bag anyways, right? It's like, you know this and you're like, well, whatever. And you keep suppressing that. So you do that long enough and it's like, oh, no big deal. Oh, no big deal. Well, again, it goes into that accumulation. You start to accumulate enough of the, I think it's also called crimes against wisdom in like a philosophy sense, right? So you do that enough and you're ignoring your dharma, you're ignoring your karma. What is your soul here to do? Eventually you will manifest a disease process. And the third one, which I just really love, is parinama. So parinama is the concept of biological time versus linear time. Whoops, time. So biological time is my cells are turning around. How old am I? I'm 39. This is a linear time, right? Sorry, I just totally confused you. That's biological time. It's happening, whether I want to or not. I'm going around the sun. I'm getting older. My cells are turning over. I'm getting wrinkled, whatever, right? Linear time is the perception that I'm 39, but I have the vitality of a 25-year-old. I am doing these practices that enhance my immortality, right? Remember what I said at the very beginning is that Ayurveda excels at prevention and preserving life in an immortal sense. It's not that you will be immortal, it's that you are elevating your vibration for life. You're elevating your vitality. So if you just eat Oreos and sit on the couch, well, I could be 39 and act like I'm 72. Or I could eat real foods that have prana, that have life force energy, that bring magnetism to my body. I could be 39 and act like I'm 25 and feel like I'm 25, right? So the concept of parinama, like if it's in congruence, it's helpful, right? You're like, okay, I'm doing this and these practices are helping and it's excelling my life. Or it can degrade your life. It can add on, you can have 13 diagnoses, you can be obese, you can be on, however many medications. So parinama is really important, and the art of meditation, because when you're not thinking about the future or the past, you're in the present moment. So you're not really aging in that sort of anxiety or angst in your in your in your timeline. Does that make sense?
And Kayla had a question in the chat about
Oh, biological time, something you can't, yeah, you can't change anything about your cellular turnover or different cultures. So Asian cultures usually have less tendency to be wrinkled, like on the outside, right? There can be any usually darker skin, Inuit Alaskans or African American or Hispanic, any of those type of cultures, they usually have more kapha, more oil in their skin anyways, so they tend to look younger in the face, right? But and they can't really change that. That's just kind of how their genetics evolved, right? But linear time, then it's like you see when they go against what they're given, then they're stressed, they're in a job and they're misusing their senses. It doesn't really matter what culture you are in. Now you feel like you're 75 when you're 50. So yes, you can change linear time, but you cannot change biological time in this Vedic context, right? And most of it is the angst of the mind. So if you're thinking, if you have regret or you're anticipatory, I could do this and I can solve all these problems and I can be prepared and I can control this, that is exhausting. What the mind, it's mind movement, right? The more you move your mind, the more you age quicker. If you're constantly worried, if you know somebody with anxiety, if you yourself have a type, which we all do, right? We all have these low-lying depression, anxiety, just being human, and it's our job to fight against that. Well, I almost forgot that. I almost had that word that I was trying to think of. Vice, is it a vice? Yeah, I think it's a vice. Anyways, if you fight against that and you're always moving your mind and you don't do any breathing, you don't do any exercise, you don't do any bodily movement, your mind is going to keep going. But even in the little bit, this is what yoga is about. It's not about attaining the posture or attaining the figure that it looks like. It's that the neurons are making those synaptic jumps and you're trying to balance. You're trying to do the pose. You're breathing, you're noticing. So you're not thinking about all this other garbage, right? You're just here. But this garbage is what makes it age you in the sense of parinama. But if you're here and let's just say you're like a Buddhist monk or something and you're here all the time, well, they can live to be 108, right? It's easier for them to live longer because they are having a calm mind. Yeah, that was a great question. Okay. And the other thing I want to tell you is the 3 pillars of life. So this is what sustains us. It's like a 3-legged stool. It has to be balanced. You have to use all 3. You have to have food and digestion. You have to have sleep. And you have to have a creative outlet. Oops, I didn't put number 3, but you guys know that's number 3. So food and digestion, we're human beings, we eat food. But like I was saying about your Agni, you Your Agni is your digestive fire, and there's ways to stoke your Agni. The best way is exercise and only eating when you're hungry. Don't eat because you're bored. Don't eat because you're emotional. And I know these can be deep-seated patterns. If you can picture it like on a scale of 1 to 3, 3 being the most hungry, like if you're getting hangry and somebody better feed you or else, maybe you want to knock it down to a 2.5. You need to be eating around 2.5 or 3. But if you're a 1 and you're like, I mean, I guess I should eat because I won't later, or I guess I should eat because I'm bored, right? You're not going to assimilate that food. So you want to make these pillars of life really strong and sturdy. You want, like, if you can picture like an elephant sitting on your stool, like a literal stool, not your poop. A stool, those 3 legs of the stool need to be the pillars of your life that can sustain you. So the food that you put in your body quite literally becomes your tissues. So choose wisely, choose organic, choose local, choose, if you're hungry, enhance it with spices. Spices meaning spices that help digestion: cumin, coriander, cinnamon, ginger, hing. And I'll go over some cookbooks that I really like too. And sleep. We need sleep. As much as we are given in this culture that you don't need sleep, that you can just keep doing, you can just keep producing, don't worry about it, have a Monster energy drink, have more coffee, and then have more coffee, right? Coffee is not related to your productivity. It's okay to rest. It's okay to nap. It's okay to, and I firmly attest to this, that my emotional health is tied to my sleep. Some people don't need 9 hours of sleep. Some people do 5, but you have to be almost brutally honest with yourself and saying, am I getting the rest and restoration that I need? And you will find that the vitality within your soul actually provides that for you rather than actually going to bed, right? So the more alive with prana you are, the more your body rests and restores itself as you're living. But provide yourself with opportunities to nap, provide yourself with opportunities to not do anything, but just be. You don't have to do all the time. One of my rules is if you can nap and snack without it ruining your bedtime or your meals, go for it. But if you nap and it disrupts your sleep, then you don't need to nap. If you snack and it disrupts your mealtime, then you don't need to snack. So you're constantly checking in, right? Ayurveda is a self-responsibility. It's a self-liberation too. And then of course, the third pillar is your creative outlet. We need to procreate. We need to have our art projects. I'm not saying you have to create a human being. I'm saying those are like the choices. Those are the menu of things for creativity, right? Producing a human being, just having sex in and of itself is a restorative practice. Having sex with yourself is vitally important, especially as a woman. I am really, especially in my wiser years, as I've gotten to this point, is that yes, the happiness comes from yourself, but it really provides an astounding stamina and a resiliency the more you can create with yourself in a sexual manner, in a creative outlet. Are you painting? Are you crafting? Are you planting? Are you cooking? Are you organizing? Are you bringing community together? Right? That is a creative outlet, and everyone's creative outlet looks different. But we are I'm not saying this definitively, but we are creative, sexual, emotional human beings. And when we suppress that with our society, right, like the taboo or where we are now with values of human beings, we're just suppressing that creative outlet. So you need these three to stand on that pillar of life. And when those are standing and sturdy, you are on top of that and you are living your life and you can see your dharma. You can see more intuitively. You can act more intuitively. You can be in harmony with nature easier. It's not like a New Year's resolution. It's not going to be this thing that you fail at. It's not going to be something that you have to go against. You just make one tiny micro thing at a time, change at a time. And if you don't remember anything from today, remember that it's how you eat, not what you eat. Sit down and enjoy your food. And from that, everything will grow. Think of the first time that you went to a yoga class. You didn't know all the postures. You didn't know the breathing. You didn't know why. You didn't know anything about Ayurveda, right? But you felt it and then you kept making those changes. And it builds and builds on itself and it's infinite, right? It's not capped like you're going to reach Ayurveda prestige or you're going to reach yoga nirvana just because you do certain things. It keeps going and it flows. And the flow of the life is that you're taking responsibility to interact with the natural world in Ayurveda's perspective. Okay, so I want to leave, and I know that's like, it's a lot, right? But you're not going to get everything all in one day for Ayurveda, but it's a lot to incorporate and assimilate into your mind, but give it some time, give it a full year, really start to take notes on these and maybe just like put post-it notes up or wherever you're on the fridge. Like if you drink ice water from the fridge, just put a post-it note up there and be like, would you like some tea? Love yourself, or whoever you are, or however you talk to yourself. Like those are my things. Or I just don't buy snacks, right? If you guys shop at Costco, it's like snacking kingdom. And I'll buy certain things, right? And I have snacks. It's not like I'm withholding from myself. It's just when I have a snack, can I then still maintain my Agni for my meals? Okay, so give yourself the grace to learn this, be patient, and notice the changes. It's so incredible. And like I said, I'm like 3rd or 4th grade elementary level, and I love it. It enhances my life. It makes me more grateful. It helps me be in the present moment. It helps me live with nature. It helps me pick out those herbs. I forget who was talking about the herbs. I think it was you, Belle. Somebody was making tea. Just experiment. You're not going to make a wrong medicine for you. And if you do, then don't use that particular herb the next time, So I challenge you to do what you could do if you knew you couldn't fail. Okay. So I like to cook. I know that everybody doesn't like to cook. And that's okay. You don't have to be a good cook to be good at Ayurveda. Remember, it's how you eat, not what you eat. But I do have a few cookbooks for kind of everybody. So the first one is called the Everyday Ayurveda Cookbook by Kate O'Donnell. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones. It's the Everyday Ayurveda Cookbook. And the reason I like it is because it's color-coded with the seasons. Okay, so it has an everyday section, which you can use every day, regardless of season. And then okay, so for breakfast in the fall section, it has cranberry butternut muffins, or, I mean, there's a lot. This is just a couple. Stewed apples with dates. So one, you're cooking your food, you're getting that sugary sweet taste, and you're using apples, which are seasonal, right? And I don't think it has a picture. Let me show you one of a cool picture. Oh, this is a good one too. I've made this. This is really good. Fall roasted spiced vegetables with whipped tahini sauce. Tahini is the sesame that goes in hummus, right? Okay. So you cook these spiced vegetables like beets, carrots, parsnips, yam. You cook it all in ghee, and then you add like rosemary, or they offer for a particular fall spice mix. And you roast it, and then you put whipped tahini sauce on it with tahini, olive oil, and lemon. And doesn't that look delicious? Okay, so that's just an example for like fall breakfast, easy fall lunch. You could add some rice to that and have a root vegetable bowl, or simple black bean soup. Okay, but this one, if you're unsure and you're not really into cooking, I would definitely go with this one. It has beverages, spice mixes. It has its own rendition of Ayurveda, you know. And then the other one is what to eat for how you feel. And her name is Divya, I think is how you say it, Alter. And when I get the opportunity, I'm going to go to her restaurant in New York City. So that's this one. And she's, I'd say more traditional than the other cookbook, but none of these are like real complicated. They're not like Williams Sonoma recipes. They're just real easy. Okay. And hers are divided into the seasons as well. And this one is like, this one is really good. This is under the summer and early fall. So again, today is really cold in Colorado Springs, but it's still early fall. So it can be kind of summery. Like yesterday, it was pretty hot, right? So you want a little bit of balance until it's like a definitive, okay, we're in this next season. So this is a spinach risotto, like really easy to make, but you're having, let's see, asafoetida, which is also called hing powder, which is what I talked about earlier, good for digestion. Coriander, spinach. Spinach is really, it's cooling, but it's that green leafiness that you need to cleanse your liver, but you're cooking the spinach, so you're not eating it raw. It has parsley, basil, lime juice, and ghee. If you're not eating ghee and you're not vegan, you need to be eating ghee. I'll tell you more on that later. But this is the spinach risotto. Okay, that could just be like an easy side. That's one of my favorites, actually. They still have really good, like you can still eat salads as long as your digestion is okay in this time period. But think of what you're choosing. So this is fennel, radish, and watercress salad. So it's not just raw, it's heating energetically foods, right? Radish and watercress is pretty heating, but fennel is cooling because you have those high, hot, kind of summery Indian summer days, but then it's really cool at night. Okay. And then you're having, that could be a salad that you have in the fall time. Okay. And the last one is this the one? Yeah, is Eat, Taste, Heal. Okay, and this one is there's like 3 authors, but the first one is Thomas Yerma, I think is how you say it. Okay. And it's a pretty big one. The reason I like this one is because if you are a meat eater, it really incorporates like salmon, or if you want to make asparagus, curry, chicken with fennel broth. The other ones are vegetarian based, but this one is meat based. So this one is a little bit different. It has like, see this little P? It'll tell you for each recipe if it's Pitta, Vata, or Kapha a type of recipe. And then even if it's Pitta, it says if you're, okay, so this one in particular is tempeh and garden vegetable kebabs, which tempeh isn't a meat if you're vegetarian or vegan, in saffron almond marinade. Okay, that's a good recipe for Pitta, but if you're Vata, you substitute tofu for the tempeh. If you're Kapha, substitute tofu for the tempeh and enjoy in moderation. Okay. And let's go to like I'm trying to find a Vata recipe because it's Vata time period now. The salmon and recipe I did was really good in here. This has like dressings, bruschetta.
I actually have a fun fact while you look for a recipe.
Yeah.
And I learned in my archaeology classes in school that on, I guess, kind of on more of a concrete level, since this is all like all the food and water and everything is like how you feel every day, but also archaeologists can tell where people lived based on their bones, because the water that you drink in the environment that you are in stays in your bones for up to, I think it's like 7 years at a time or something like that. So you can 7 to 10 years. So you can trace back, like when you dig up some bones, where somebody lived up to
so
like
cool.
10 years back. Yeah. I thought that was pretty neat.
I love that. And water is so sacred. Water is life. You know, it's like we think, oh, it's clean, it's coming from the tap. And if we have privilege, which I think most of us do, there we go. Most of us do, just being in America at this point. Yes, I know not everyone has the same capabilities, but if you have the choice, choose water that is sacred, choose water that is filtered, choose water. There's a whole, what do I want to say? There's a whole world about sacred water, right? You can, if you're not familiar with structured water, just look that up. It goes anywhere. But basically, like the water goes down the stream around the boulders. There's birds chirping. There's fish swimming. There's moose drinking out of it. Right. That's structured water with like literally the cosmos. It's up in the sky, the moonlight, the sunlight, the trees moving in the cycle of life. That's providing a cosmic structure to your water. Versus it, and can you get it that way? From like when you're out camping, do you filter the water, right? Remember how you feel if you've ever drank filtered water like that, versus the water that goes through the tap through the chlorine filter and it's just piped and it's jagged and straight. That's not structured in nature. It's the structured water of the cosmic structure of ourselves that we need that same water. It's really cool, super fascinating. But yeah, go, if you're interested in that, look at that. But anyways, I just want to share, this is like chicken tiki masala, right? So it's a kapha recipe. But for vata, you would add 4 tablespoons of coconut milk. You want to add that density. For pitta, you would just change a little bit of the seasoning powders. It has like, you know, don't use garlic or chili or tomato for the pitta type person. And that is like this. Okay. And I just want to share this too. Well, here's braised chicken with cilantro reduction. Okay, I would say this is probably the more complicated book out of all of them, but I feel like they're easy if you like to cook and you follow recipes. They all have their own Vata Pitta Kapha rendition, and they all have their own kind of story of Ayurveda. But I really like those. And if you don't like to cook, I encourage you to maybe just start cooking crock pot meals, right? Find something that's warm, that you're attached to, that you can then produce that relationship with your food, because it will be the relationship of your body. And then you don't have to be like making 3 meals a day for 12 people. You can just cook once, use the leftovers the next day, and then that's it, right? You don't have to cook every single meal. Make it easy on yourself. Make it easy to succeed. Okay. I don't right now. I was doing workshops at Cambio, but that's not happening. But I did say something about ghee. Ghee is really, really important in Ayurveda. And I do make and sell ghee. The brand of my ghee is called Yogi, like this. And for those of you local, I did have it at Mountain Mama, the little grocery shop on Uinta. Oh, hi, Suzanne. I'm almost done. I did have it at Mountain Mama, but I don't anymore because of cost production. But if you're interested in ghee and would like to try some homemade, just email me. My email is leslie@consciousroots.ayurveda.com. Email me anytime, reach out through Instagram. It's highly beneficial. It helps your Agni, it helps your neurons, it helps your mood, it helps your digestion, it makes everything more flavorful. If you're a vegan, it's something to consider as a medicine. There is not a vegan version, right? Because it's basically boiled butter, and all of the milk and lactose enzymes are taken out. So it's just a really potent oil. It's no longer butter, and it's shelf stable. It's really good for cooking anything, baking, whatever. You can get it most places. Choose wisely. You need organic. And if you'd like to try mine, just email me anytime that you want. They had one break at 11:30ish or 11ish. So but I encourage you to keep going, and that's all the time that we have today. And I'm so excited. Thank you for helping me stay grounded, because this morning was really crazy in my personal life, in my cat and dog and toddler world. But I survived.
Before you go, I think Caleb had a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah.
It was just about ghee. I bought ghee from Costco, and like the tub like this big, but it's no longer an oil. It's like solid. Is that because
That's
it's
okay.
cold?
Yeah. So the oil, it's kind of like coconut oil. It comes and goes with the temperature.
Okay.
Just mix it up all the way, and it's kind of, I know what you're talking about. Sometimes it can be a little grainy. It depends on, honestly, it's like when I make it, it's totally solid for a few months that I make it, and then later in the summer it'll be like it is at Costco.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, good job for buying that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I also wanted to just say this class was super interesting to me. Like, this
Oh,
is like
good.
wildly fascinating. I'm definitely going to look into this. Like, I've lived in only hot climates pretty much my entire life. This is like my third ever winter. And so, like, the past couple of years, I'm realizing so many things about myself that I never used to be able to handle before. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why are you this way? And so this is like, gonna give me more of a direction to kind of look at things and take things. And I don't know, this is really cool. Like, especially just what you intake and what you expel and what's better for you, and just getting to know your body better.
Yeah.
Like, this was, thank you. This
Good.
was dope.
I'm so glad to hear that. Also, you know, share how we get to know this is share your journey. Like, I can really testify to my emotional health based on Ayurveda. Yes, my physical body was like, you know, pretty good, but it really, really helped my emotional health. Yeah. So enjoy. It looks like Suzanne said be back at 12:20. So get outside, stretch your body, take a few breaths of fresh air wherever you are, take in the prana, let it percolate and give you that energy. Okay. So I hope to see you guys in the future in real life, but I love you all and have a blessed, blessed day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
The echo.